Most sales guys fuck this up. They talk too much, they try too hard to convince, and that's why they end up with a bunch of objections, people needing to think about it, or getting ghosted on their next call. So if you don't control the frame, you lose the deal, period. In this video, I'm gonna break down my scriptless sales process I call the frame method. This is the same 5-step approach I use to collect over $80 million as a digital closer. I'm gonna show you how to eliminate objections before they even come up without using some corny, lame script and without getting ghosted by your prospects. Let's get into it. Most sales guys struggle because they wing their sales calls. They just freestyle it with no proven structure to the process. So they end up just pandering to the audience, answering all the prospects' questions. They have no control. They come off needy, like a people pleaser, or like some eager puppy dog. Don't do this because you're instantly gonna kill the deal because you're gonna lose their respect. People don't buy from people that they don't respect. You gotta position yourself as an authority or else you're gonna get blindsided on the call with, oh, I need to think about it. Sound familiar? Let's break down some of the common mistakes that high-ticket closers make. Number one, they don't control the conversation. They let the prospect lead. So as soon as the prospect takes control and they're setting the agenda, you're losing the deal. You gotta be the one that sets the agenda, that controls the conversation. You gotta be the leader. Another mistake I see all the time is closers will talk too much. If you're talking 80% of the time, it's not a sales call. It's a speech, it's a monologue, it's a lecture. So you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, use it accordingly. They should be the one doing all the talking. Another mistake that sales guys make is they're afraid to ask the tough questions. They're afraid to challenge the prospect's limiting belief. And objections are not even true concerns anyway. Most of them are just excuses that come from a place of fear. And you gotta go through those smoke screens. You gotta uncover the true objection or you're never gonna close that deal. All right, so how do we fix this? You use the frame method. This is a system that I came up with after thousands of sales calls under my belt, making tons of mistakes. I wasn't always good at sales. I made a lot of mistakes, and some of those mistakes were super expensive and cost me a lot of money. I had to learn this shit the hard way. But when I started building out sales teams, I wanted a proven method that I could teach all my closers to use so they could control the conversation from start to finish. All right, so the frame method has 5 key parts of the process. And if you get these right and you master each phase, you're never gonna get treated like a little bitch on a sales call ever again. All right, let's start with F, which stands for frame. You gotta control the call right from the start. You gotta command respect. You gotta position yourself as an authority. You gotta be the one that sets the agenda the whole time, or else it's not gonna work. Here's an example. You're like, hey John, this is how I run these calls usually for the sake of time. I'm just gonna ask you a few questions, make sure it's a good fit, and if there's 100% alignment, I could explain the next steps from there. Sound good? All right, let's get into it. Something like that. You control the agenda, you set the frame, you're the boss, they play by your rules. And the reason why this works is because when you set the agenda, they see you as a leader and they want to follow you. People want to buy from people that they respect, not from just people they like. A lot of sales guys make that mistake. They just want to be likable. So on your next sales call, when you start with the frame, just build some quick rapport. Don't try to be too likable or agreeable and try to become their best friend. Just quickly show them you're a normal human being and then get straight into setting the agenda because you're a busy guy. You don't have time to bullshit around. The next phase of the frame method is R, which stands for reveal. So instead of just jumping into your features and benefits and trying to sell them on your program, you should truly try to understand their pain, their problem, what they're going through, and have empathy for that. You got to truly understand their worldview and all their limiting beliefs. Because when you understand their limiting beliefs, you could challenge them. You could reframe them and tell them another idea that gives them a paradigm shift. If you could pull that off as a leader, you're gonna close a lot more deals instead of just trying to pander to the audience. Most sales guys jump into the pitch way too fast. So first you gotta uncover their worldview. You gotta truly understand all their beliefs, their positive beliefs, their limiting beliefs. And once you come across and uncover one of those limiting beliefs, you gotta challenge it. Most sales guys will just let it be. They're afraid to ask those kind of tough questions. You gotta ask that. You gotta ask, like, what seems to be the biggest challenge you're going through right now with your business? What brought you here? And then get them to elaborate on it. So how long have you been dealing with that? And you wanna dig deep into that pain to really find out what it is. Don't just take the surface level answers. You gotta dig a little deeper and chunk down. And then you gotta find out their desired outcome, their own personal heaven or their own dream. And not only their nightmare or their personal hell, but the things they're going through that they want to solve, but they also have to have something they're running towards. But the pain is what really motivates people to make changes. You're understanding them from all their different beliefs. Now, if you want a full breakdown of how I ask my questions on sales calls, my full questions bank, I'm going to include a link down below. So this section is all about using Socratic dialogue, where you're asking them questions to uncover that worldview. And then once you truly understand it, now you could actually give them a solution in the next step. The next phase is A, which stands for align. So during this phase is where you have to show them that your offer and your solution is the only logical step for them to reach their goals and get away from that pain that you just established in the previous section. And one of the best ways you could do this is by telling them a story, because people love stories. They're very relatable. They could imagine themselves as the character in the story. So here's an example of how you could do that, how you could transition with a story to help them kind of imagine themselves as that character. And it gives them insights on how your solution could help them reach their goal, help them go from their nightmare to their dream, help them go from their hell to their heaven. So an example is maybe it's a solution for their business and growing their business. And they told you they were stuck at like 50 grand a month and their goal is to get to 100 grand a month. So that way they could hire more people and spend more time with their family. Maybe that's their true desire right there. So as an example, maybe you could say something like, you know what, you remind me of one of my other clients. He was stuck at about 50 grand a month, just like you. He wanted to get to 100 grand a month, but he didn't really have the plan. And he was kind of hesitant about trying something new. But we got him started. He put some skin in the game. And within 90 days, we doubled his revenue. We could do the same thing for you if you want. It's up to you. But the reason why this works is because you're using a story to demonstrate how your solution transforms their life or their business. And then they start to get insights about how it works. And they try to imagine themselves as that person, and it builds trust. So the next phase is M, which stands for motivate. You got to motivate them to take action. If not, they're going to drag their feet. They're going to procrastinate. So you got to show them that your solution is the next logical step. It's the best option they have to get to their desired outcome. So during this phase, you got to show the prospect that the only risk is missing out on the opportunity. It's not the money that they're investing or possibly losing it. It's not whether or not it's going to work. Sure, those are risks, but the biggest risk that they're taking is procrastinating and then just missing out. Now, I like to break this phase up in 3 sections. The first section is pretty quick. You're going to make a big promise, a promise of transformation, of going from point A to point B, from their nightmare to their dream. Once you establish that, which is pretty quick, then you're going to move on to what I call the desire demand bridge. This is a kind of 3 or 4 steps of how your offer is delivered and the benefits of that offer. And you could even tell a quick story for each of those. But what you're doing is you're drawing a bridge from their hell, from their pain, to their desired outcome with that bridge. And it's creating desire, it's creating urgency, it's building up value so they can imagine themselves doing it. It's future pacing. Then the third part would be the delivery, where you're breaking down how the product is delivered or the offer is delivered and what they're getting from it and how that works. Now, during this phase, I like to ask questions in between. I don't want to just do a speech or a monologue and start talking too much. My rule is I don't want to talk for more than 30 seconds at a time without asking another question. So if I start talking a little bit too much and I could see I'm rambling for 30 seconds about maybe the desire-demand bridge and the way the offer works, I'll break it up with another question. And during this, I want to create a sense of urgency, and I want to kind of dig into what would be the pain in the future if they don't do this, if they don't take advantage of this opportunity. What's their business or their life or their health or whatever offer you're selling, what's it going to look like 6 months from now, 12 months from now, if they don't solve the problem right now? So asking questions like that in between the bridge is super powerful. It's going to make the person want to take action right away. And then after you ask that question, like, what's going to happen if you don't take care of this? And then they explain, they elaborate a little bit. You might even say something like, wow, it sounds like you got to take care of this right away, or it's just, things are going to get worse. We got to get started right away. Let's hit the ground running. So now there's so much urgency. They're just like, let's do it. Let's get started. It's really powerful. So the next phase is E, which stands for elicit. And this is where you're going to check their temperature, make sure they're all in, and then you're going to get them to commit. You're going to drop the investment and talk about the price, and then you're going to just shut up and let them think about it. And this is one of the most crucial parts. You're also going to overcome some of their limiting beliefs and doubts and fears that they have right before the end of the call, right before the close, when they commit. So this is a very crucial part. A lot of sales guys fuck this up. So usually what I do before I actually drop the investment and talk about price is I do a temperature check. So I'll ask them something like, look, it's hard to measure a man's heart over the phone like this. So I want to get really clear about how you feel about everything right now. So how do you feel about the 3 steps that I just walked you through? How do you feel about the plan I gave you? And I'll let them explain, I feel good, I feel great. All right, cool. If they say something like that, like I feel good, I feel great, this is amazing, then you might say something like, well, I want to get clear, really clear. So on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 is like, hell yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for. This is what I need. Let's get started right away. 1 is like, I was just kind of window shopping. I'm not really interested. Fuck this guy. I just want to get off the phone. That's a 1. Where do you fall on a scale from 1 to 10? And they'll tell you maybe a 7 or an 8 or a 9. Now, if it's anything less than a 9, then you might want to talk about it and find out what that means to them. So you might want to say something like, okay, so you're a 7 out of 10. All right, well, 7 out of 10 means something different to everybody. So what does that mean to you exactly? What's a 7 out of 10 mean to you? And then they tell you some type of fear or some type of doubt that they're having, or some type of confusion they have about the program and the timeline and the way it works. And so you have a chance right there. You have the opportunity to address these doubts and concerns before you get into the price and ask them to do business with you. Because if you jump into the investment, they're going to feel that pressure and you're going to lose all the power because you didn't get them to commit ahead of time and overcome some of those objections. Don't get me wrong. You could overcome those limiting beliefs and reframe them after you drop the price. It's possible, but it's way more difficult and you lose all your power. So you might as well do it right before the price when you have a chance to maintain that control. So what I usually do is address it, reframe those limiting beliefs, find out what they're nervous about, if it's risk, if it's fear, if it's the money, whatever it is, the timeline. They're concerned with something, figure it out, and don't let them get away with telling you bullshit. Because remember, objections and limiting beliefs like this, they're always disguised like a smokescreen. People make excuses, people lie on these calls. They're afraid to be honest with you. They're afraid, they're embarrassed, or maybe they're afraid to offend you. So they're kind of hiding things from you. So your job is to get them to be brutally honest with you on the call. So you're having a man-to-man conversation. You're challenging them. This is a really good time right towards the end where you could do that before you're asking them to do business. Now, if they say they're a 7 and you reframe it, you could even say, okay, well, now that we address that, and you give them like a new way to look at it and you share a new idea. And if they agree with that new idea and it makes them feel better, you could say, okay, well, now how do you feel now? You feel better after I explain that? And they go, yeah, I actually feel much better. Usually they say stuff like that. And you could say, okay, so now on a scale from 1 to 10, where are you? And you're wanting their temperature to go up. So they might have said 7 before, but now they're like, oh, now I'm a 10 out of 10. All right, cool. So you're all in. All right, cool. You ready to talk about the next steps? And then they say yes. Or you could even say, look, we only have a few spots left. So if you're serious about this, we could talk about the next steps. If not, just let me know right now if you're just trying to kind of window shop for something right now. And usually they'll say, no, I'm all in, I'm ready. Let's talk about the next steps. So they should be begging you for the price at that point, or begging you for the next steps. And then that's when you get them to commit right there. All right, so the next step is, and usually what I do is I make them imagine the process of getting started in the first like week or two or the first few days, so they could imagine it. It's called future pacing. And this makes them trust you right there. It's a really good technique to use right when you're dropping the price, and which I always call it an investment. I don't call it the price or a fee, I call it an investment. So something like this. All right, let's talk about the next steps. I'll say first step is we look over the service agreement. We make sure all that's good. And then you authorize it. Then we go from there. The second step, we process your investment. You could do that directly with me. We could do that with credit card or Venmo or whatever you want to do. And then the third step is you schedule an onboarding meeting with my team. And that's when we do like a strategy. And that's where you'll know what you're going to learn, the order of how you're going to learn it, all that stuff. Make sense? All right, cool. So the total investment for the program is $10,000. And just shut up and just let them think about it. This is where you use the power of silence, and you just let them think about it. You can almost hear the wheels turning in their brain. Put yourself on mute if you have to, if you feel uncomfortable, but don't start over-explaining things. Don't start butting in and explaining all the cool stuff they're gonna get, because you're gonna lose your authority. You're gonna lose their respect. They're gonna see that you're kind of dancing around and doing a dog and pony show because you're nervous about the price, and you're nervous that they can't afford it. You're nervous they're gonna say no, you're scared of rejection. This is where people fuck up. So don't get all fidgety and weird right then. Stay strong like a fucking oak tree with your roots planted in the ground. Right after you drop the price, shut up. Whoever talks first after you drop that price or that investment, while they're thinking about it, if you jump in first, you lose. They gotta be the one to jump in first and to say something. You never know what they're gonna say. Usually they'll say something like, well, do I have to pay that all up front? Or maybe they'll say, okay, so I could do that on credit card? Something like that. Or maybe they still have some fears and they're coming up to the surface, and now that shit is getting real with the price, now they finally admit it to you, and they finally start to admit their fears. Now you have to pace that limiting belief they have, overcome that fear, let them know you're there for them, so you could kind of guide them through that decision, have some empathy for that, because people might be a little nervous. But remember, the risk of them investing into this, doesn't matter how much it is, that's not the real risk here. You already showed them this is the most logical way to get to their desired outcome. And they've already admitted that to you. They've already made those verbal commitments. They've already made identity statements. And people at this point, they don't want to contradict themselves. They don't want to go against their identity that they were portraying to you earlier on in the call. And the reason why this works is because the silence forces the prospect to process the decision. And if you talk first, you're going to lose all your power. All right, now let's look at how this plays out on an actual sales call. So a weak closer tries to build too much rapport, tries to be too friendly and kisses the prospect's ass, and then gets into the call in a really kind of roundabout way, just kind of winging it like, so tell me about what you're looking for. What solutions are you looking for? Something stupid like that, something corny that goes along with some script that they're reading. And people could sense it. But a frame closer does it differently. Commands respect instantly positions himself as the authority figure, just builds a little bit of rapport to show the person he's a normal human being, and then gets straight into setting the agenda of the call. So he'll say something like, look, the way I usually like to run these calls just for the sake of time is I want to find out a little bit more about your business just to make sure it's a good fit. And if there's 100% alignment, then I could explain my program and how it works, and you could decide if we're going to work together or not. Sound fair? All right, let's get into it. So a weak sales rep is going to focus on listing out features and benefits on our program is so great because it does X, Y, Z. If you want to be awesome too, just like our product, then buy my stuff right now. And if you don't buy my stuff today, the world's going to end. That's how these typical sleazy sales guys work. But a frame closer focuses on alignment. So he might say something like, look, I don't even know if it's a good fit or not. I wanted to just ask you a few questions, make sure there's alignment, and then we could go from there. What seems to be your biggest challenge you're dealing with right now in your business? So you take control, you ask a question. He who asks the questions is in control of the conversation. So a weak sales rep goes in for the close way too early, way too fast. Like, are you ready to get started? They're too eager to get the deal done. But a frame closer will say something like this. Look, we only have a few spots left. Our solution is really unique, so it's not for everybody, but for the right person, it's a game changer. So based on everything we talked about so far, is this something you're trying to get started with right away, or? And the reason why this works is because you uncover the real pain while creating urgency at the same time without coming off desperate, because you're the one setting the frame. Most sales reps lose deals because they talk too much, or they let the prospect lead the conversation, or they're afraid to ask the tough questions. So quick recap, F stands for frame. This is where you control the conversation, set the agenda, command respect as an authority figure. R stands for reveal. This is where you ask questions, understand their worldview, uncover their limiting beliefs so you could reframe those into positive beliefs. They're not going to move forward unless you understand their pain and their desire. The next step is align. That's where you tell a story that aligns their pain with their desire, and they could imagine themselves going through your solution in their head, in their imagination, so they trust you. Next is M, which stands for motivate. This is where you actually get into the pitch and the offer, and then you build value and urgency so they want to move forward right away. E stands for elicit, and this is where you drop the price and you secure the commitment to get them to move forward right away. So use this process step by step on your next call, and I promise you your prospects are going to be treating you differently. They're going to be showing you much more respect, and notice the difference of their responses when you do this. So stop talking too much, stop pandering to the prospect and kissing their ass, and start controlling the frame. Subscribe to my channel for more free content like this. Let's get to work.